Sheriff in Florida went viral for saying this about shooting people breaking into your home.
We don't know which homeowner shot at him. I guess they think that they did something wrong, which they did not. If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually.
So what happened here is that this upstanding citizen, with numerous prior felonies and status as a high-risk sex offender, was breaking into multiple homes in a neighborhood.
One of the homeowners shot at him, but he wasn't hit, and police didn't know which homeowner actually did it.
So whoever that was, you're not in trouble. Come see us. We have a gun safety class we put on every other Saturday. And if you take that, you'll shoot a lot better, and hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
This press conference was wildly criticized by defense attorneys throughout Florida. But was the sheriff actually right about the law? Well, Florida, like about half of all U.S. states, has what's called the Castle Doctrine. And the main point here is to offer greater legal protections to those who use deadly force inside their home.
But many people still don't quite understand what this law actually means. And it's super important to be specific here. To use deadly force, you must reasonably believe that you're facing imminent and serious harm.
What the Castle Doctrine does is legally presume that if someone's breaking into your home, your belief of harm is reasonable, meaning the use of deadly force is legally justified.
But this is just a presumption, not an automatic rule. Presumptions can always be refuted. For example, if the little kid neighbor from next door mistakenly comes into your house because they, thought their dog went through your dog door, it would not be legal to shoot them, thank God.
But the Castle Doctrine's presumption is still very powerful. Whenever someone does shoot a home intruder in Florida, any evidentiary disputes or questions have to fall in favor of that homeowner, and the presumption that their use of force was justified. First woman, Rashida Tlaib, is facing a lot of criticism for flying the Palestinian flag outside of her office at the Capitol. Tlaib is of Palestinian descent, and reportedly the flag's been there for several months.
Now, reports say a Republican congressman has proposed a new measure to ban any flag other than the U.S. flag from being displayed at the Capitol building. Is that true? And would that actually be legal?
Well, the issue here is obviously the First Amendment, which prevents the government from restricting free speech, with speech meaning much more than just verbal words, but also symbolic expressions.
For example, the Supreme Court very famously and very contentiously ruled in this case that burning the American flag was protected free speech. So regardless of how you might feel about it, actually banning another country's flag from inside a government building would likely violate the First Amendment.
But headlines about this proposed measure are actually getting it all wrong.
Shocking.
The measure isn't actually trying to ban the display of flags outright. What it actually does is ban the use of tax dollars to buy flags from other countries. The congressman behind this measure obviously knew that the First Amendment wouldn't allow this kind of outright ban. So he targeted the funds behind it instead. This is a common, crafty loophole to get around the First Amendment protections.
And to avoid boring the pants literally right off your ass with a complex legal analysis, we'll just say this can sometimes work.
But of course, Tlaib herself could get around this by just buying the flag with her own money. Is it actually legal for Texas's governor to bus migrants to other states?
Well, it certainly caused quite the controversy. Mayors from places like Chicago and New York are saying that the migrant situation has become an unsustainable crisis.
14 buses today. You know, this is a growing crisis, not just for the city of Chicago, but for the entire globe.
We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. This issue will destroy New York City.
And the LA mayor says that the busing policy is inhumane and politically motivated because Texas is sending buses to self-labeled sanctuary cities.
On the other hand, Texas's Governor Greg Abbott says it's unfair for small border towns in Texas to bear the brunt of the large influx of migrants, which, he says, is the result of federal policies.
Now, the LA City Council is actually looking into whether Abbott committed any crimes or if he can be sued for the busing program. But this most likely won't work. Because independent of what you might feel about it, the busing program does seem to be legal.
There's no specific law banning a governor from doing this. In fact, the federal government already transports migrants all over the country. The practice itself isn't that unusual.
Instead, LA is looking into whether things like fraud, kidnapping, or human trafficking occur. The problem with those arguments is that the busing program is reportedly strictly voluntary, with migrants even getting to choose what city they want to go to and signing a consent waiver.
They go voluntarily. They self-identify what city they want to go to.
Now, if there's any coercion or threats involved here, then any waiver signed would be invalid and crime could be afoot. But there's no evidence of that right now. Even the New York Times has reported that many migrants are grateful for the free trip. Another super viral video involving the police in a vroom vroom machine.
A motorcycle.
So the officer here cuts off the biker to pull him over.
I was pulling out of the road. What?
He immediately handcuffs him and pulls him off the bike.
What did I do? You're not gonna say anything? Hop off the bike. What was I doing?
And then proceeds to search him.
How do you go?
Was this legal?
Well, the answer to that depends entirely on what the biker was pulled over for.
There's a lot of controversy in the comments about that. But using our super fancy Harvard lawyer analytics technology,
turning up the sound,
the officer says you were going 100. The original video also mentions that the speed limit was 65.
In Florida, where this happened, driving 30 miles per hour over the speed limit can actually be considered reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 90 days in jail and an arrestable offense.
So what actually happened here is that the biker was technically arrested, meaning that the search performed by the officer here was a search incidental to arrest.
Police don't need a warrant to search you you after placing you under arrest.
People are also wondering about the biker not being read his Miranda rights.
Another point that people don't often understand. Police don't need to read you Miranda rights immediately after arresting you. They only need to read them if you're under arrest and they're about to interrogate you. Cue the bootlicker comments. We're just trying to explain the law.
MLB star pitcher Trevor Bauer has just posted this super viral video, which many says shows he's completely innocent of the sexual assault allegations made by Lindsay Hill, and that she actually set him up.
Let's go over all of this, as always, endeavoring to be as factual and unbiased as possible. Back in 2021, Hill accused Bauer of a violent sexual assault. She admitted that the sex started consensually, but that Bauer took it way too far, leading to injuries like these and others throughout her body, even in private areas.
Bauer always adamantly denied any wrongdoing and claimed that the sex, albeit aggressive, was always consensual. After the allegations were made, the MLB suspended Bauer for violating its domestic violence policy.
We emphasize its decision because the MLB is a private organization that can generally make its own decisions without any civil or criminal ruling. That's important here because Bauer has never faced any criminal or civil liability for these allegations.
Hill tried applying for a permanent restraining order, but the court denied it. In the legal world, these types of restraining orders have a lower evidentiary burden than a full criminal case. Put simply, they're easier to win. Hill did not win, and the judge actually stated that she materially misled the court with her filing.
But Bauer also says something misleading in his viral video.
She denied her request for a domestic violence restraining order, and she found that no sexual assault or non-consensual conduct took place.
The judge who denied the restraining order did not explicitly rule that no abuse occurred. Although the judge did discuss how Hill gave initial consent to rough sex due to her text messages saying she wanted all the pain and even wanted to be choked out, and her admission that Bauer complied with safe word, the restraining order was actually denied because there was no evidence that Bauer would harm or even contact Hill in the future.
While all of this was happening, the police completed an investigation and prosecutors declined to file charges. Bauer ended up suing Hill for defamation, which he said he did for a very specific reason. Not for money, but for discovery.
The discovery process in a lawsuit allows people to request things like videos, text messages, and photos, including all the metadata to ensure that nothing's deleted or messed. Parties to a lawsuit must comply with these requests or face serious punishment.
Bauer ended up receiving text messages and one video that he says was deliberately withheld from him during the restraining order process, which, if true, is a serious offense. The text messages are from Hill to a friend saying things like,
"Next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. Net worth is 51 mil. Need daddy to choke me out. Being an absolute whore to try to get in on his 51 million.
And then there's the video, which Hill took just hours after the alleged assault. Hill has confirmed in an interview that all of these are real, but says that the texts are taken out of context and that the video is misleading because she was in shock and bruises take time to appear.
Proponents of Bauer say that this shows all of Hill's claims were false and that she ruined his career with him now being forced to play in Japan.
It's worth noting that Bauer is also facing a similar lawsuit from a woman in Arizona claiming sexual assault, who Bauer has countersued for fraud and extortion.
But there's no significant information on that case yet.